My name is Bryan Housel, and today I'm going to share the story of this weird project called the Name Suggestion Index. So let's go. Before we start, we sometimes use acronyms when we talk about this project, and I just want to make sure everybody is like on the same page because I really hate jargon and confusing acronyms. They're pretty unfriendly, but we can't avoid it sometimes. So OpenStreetMaps, right? OSM is OpenStreetMap. It's the reason for this conference. I figure you all know this, unless you just got lost and wandered in here. But anyway, it's a free map that anybody can edit. So, and if I say POI, I'm talking about a point of interest. So POI can be anything that people want to put on the map, like OSM, or visit in real life, like a restaurant, school, church, gas station, really anything. So we talk about POIs a lot in OpenStreetMap and how to get people to add them and whether they're mapped well or not. Finally, NSI is just this name suggestion index. We call it NSI sometimes. It's not like a weird government agency or whatever. It's just the name suggestion index. If you see me call it NSI, that's all we're doing. So show of hands, who has actually heard of this name suggestion index project before? Oh, yeah, a few people. But how many of you have heard about it before, like last year when I started obnoxiously tweeting about it? Probably nobody, right? Turns out the name suggestion index has been around since 2013. That's longer than I've been around OpenStreetMap, which is kind of wild. It was created as this sort of side project that spun out of the ID editor. And as you might infer from the name, it's a list of common named things, like POIs, that people just want to add to OpenStreetMap. For every entry in the index contains a name and just whatever OpenStreetMap tags go along with it. But why do this, right? Well, ID is really aimed at beginner mappers. We want everybody to feel like they can contribute meaningfully to OpenStreetMap. So the original developers of ID back in 2013 realized that beginners aren't going to know what all the tags are. Nobody starts off knowing what's the difference between amenity fast food or amenity restaurant or amenity cafe. And even we seasoned OSMers sometimes disagree on this stuff. So they decided that, a beginner would just prefer to type McDonald's or Starbucks and just have those tags filled in for them. And so they collected all the information in index, turned the results into ID presets, and it makes the mapping experience a lot friendlier for beginners. We can nudge beginners towards using the correct tags for things. So how did we gather these names? Again, the focus of Name Suggestion Index is really about mapping POIs, points of interest. So we don't want common street names like Main Street or things like that. So the original developers decided to narrow their search. So they only collect the names for features that are tagged with amenity, leisure, shop, and tourism. That pretty much covers most of the POIs, but not all of them, but it's a good subset. And they arbitrarily picked a threshold of 50 occurrences to consider a name for inclusion into the index. There's nothing really special about that 50 number. It just means that they don't want to gather all these rare names that you're never going to see in normal mapping. They want brands of things. And it turns out collecting common names and tags of POIs in OpenStreetMap is kind of a tricky problem. The world is big and messy, and humans are very inconsistent. So if you look at the real POI data that's been added to OpenStreetMap, you see that things are often not mapped consistently. It's just everybody does it a little bit different. There's variations in tagging, spelling, punctuation, capitalization. But we believe mostly that it's okay to just pick the most common occurrence, right? Because the majority of mappers probably know what they're doing. So we just pick the most frequently occurring thing. But there is a twist, okay? When we talk about gathering the most common named things in OpenStreetMap, the name tag itself is pretty messy too. So a lot of people use the name tag I don't want to say incorrectly, but maybe not according to how the OSM wiki says you're supposed to use the name tag, right? So maybe they just put a description of the place there because they want something to show up on a map they want to render. Or maybe there's just a bunch of cafes that really are just named cafe, I don't know. Or maybe there's places around the world where our Western cultural assumptions about naming just don't quite hold up. So we can't just gather all the names without doing some filtering to remove generic and unwanted things. So all these cafes named cafe. So it's 2013. They processed an OpenStreetMap planet file. They collected all the frequently occurring names of POIs. They filtered all the names into keep and discard lists, and they released the keep list as Name Suggestion Index. You can see the kinds of things on here that ended up in the keep list and the kinds of things that ended up in the discard list. So, that's pretty good. And there were around 5,000 names in the keep list, and these got turned into the name suggestion presets. So high fives all around, right? success. And then we pretty much forgot about it. So this is the funny thing, right? For like 5 years, this project got launched, and sometimes this happens in open source where a thing is just like good enough. It's not amazing. It's not so bad we have to replace it, but it just sort of like limps along, like for years and years. And the project had some minor issues, all right? So like there was a time in 2015 when there were a few duplicated names that we missed because of variations in how they were capitalized. And then there was a few generic names that we hadn't filtered out. So there were some odd suggestions in the ID editor, like with the presets. Like in 2016, you could still there was this nail salon that was just named Nails, right? That's not real. It just happened to be a bug in the name suggestion index. And so overall, we just ignored this thing, right? We never really processed the planet file. And I actually think that the scripts to do that were broken. So we'd fix these little errors as people would report them, but the project just coasted along without anybody really maintaining it for a couple of years. And in the meantime, a new way of tagging some POIs was starting to catch on. So people were asking us to support brand Wikidata. So what does that mean? Well, a Starbucks with brand tags might look like this, right? You still have your amenity cafe, you still have name Starbucks, but these tags in orange are what tie each individual Starbucks POI into the overall Starbucks brand. The brand Wikipedia, as you might imagine, functions as a link to the Wikipedia page for Starbucks. And then this brand Wikidata is another tag. It's a really special one because it functions sort of like a unique identifier in Wikidata. And these identifiers they start with Q and have some numbers. So Q37158, it's a letter Q. So that you can tell that's a Wikidata ID. So we can follow that Wikipedia link to learn about Starbucks. And every Wikipedia page in every language has this Wikidata item. It's kind of down in the bottom where I put the arrow. And you can follow that. And this is Wikidata. Wikidata is kind of a treasure trove of linked data. It's everything you would ever want to know about the concept of Starbucks, right? Important dates, people, links to pages, images, everything. Starbucks has a bunch of Wikipedia pages that from all the languages of the world, but they all link back to this single record of Q37158. So that's very convenient for us, right? If we could tag all the Starbuckses in OSM with this brand Wikipedia tag, or Wikidata tag, and then it opens up a lot of possibilities for working with POIs that we can't do, with our messy names. So I hope this is not a controversial statement, but Wikidata really is better than using the name tag to find things. So how many Starbucks' POIs are in OSM? We don't really know because they all have different names. They're tagged inconsistently. But if they all had this brand Wikidata tag, then yes, we could actually answer that question. We can compare it to Starbucks' published numbers and see how complete OSM is. And then consider internationalization. Starbucks does not use the same name everywhere in the world, right? Sometimes it says Starbucks, but sometimes it's in other languages. With this brand Wikidata, we can actually identify all of them. We could even use Overpass to query and find them all. So we could answer those kind of questions about how good we're doing with our POI coverage. We can even link to other projects like Street Cred or Check-in Checker or all the places. And we can incentivize people to add missing POIs to OSM or to fill in data. We can say, hey, you're at a Starbucks. Are these the opening hours, right? Because we know that it has that ID. And can we even differentiate between different brands with the same name, right? So this is a thing that comes up sometimes in POI mapping. There's a USA Target and an Australian Target, and they're completely different. There's two different supermarkets in the United States called Price Chopper, depending on whether you're in New York or Kansas. And then, we've got two different Aldis. This is just a thing that happens sometimes. There's a lot of different banks that go by the name Commerce Bank. So with the brand Wikidata, we can actually tell them all apart so that, we're not just going by the name of a thing, we're going by something that's a little more unique. And finally, sometimes brands close down or they merge into other brands or they change their names. And so if we're tagging them with this brand Wikidata, then we know how to find them and we can encourage mappers to update these records, either with an approved mass edit or a map roulette campaign. So I keep coming back to this sad GitHub contribution graph. A year ago, in September 2018, I finally decided to resurrect this project. So all the issues that were going on with it were just all right, we have to get it working again. So what I was facing was, is broken, and we hadn't processed a planet file in many years. So I fixed that first. But I also knew it would be a ton of work to do all this research and add these brand Wikidata tags to like 5,000 or so entries, and to really check them, right? To actually filter out all the generic words, which we never really did very well in the first time. And then even then, the index is just like missing a lot of stuff, right? Remember, this was an index seeded with POI data from 2013. So like how good were the POIs mapped in 2013? Like kind of hit or miss. But so I had a secret weapon, right? And that secret weapon was Hacktoberfest 2018. So if you don't know, like Hacktoberfest is this thing that GitHub and a few other companies sponsor every year. And if you sign up, you make 5 pull requests, then you get some free stuff, like shirts, stickers, just, some swag. So if you are an open source maintainer and you can get your project set up good enough that, you have a good contributing guide and you have some issues and the issues are tagged Hacktoberfest, people will just like show up and do your work for you. It sounds silly, but this is really what happens, right? And so I wrote this script to open like 2,000 GitHub tickets. And I kind of spammed Hacktoberfest a little bit. And all the issues looked exactly like this one right here, right? It says, we need help deciding what to do with this supermarket named Weiss. If it's a real brand, and it explains like instructions on, go do your research and edit this JSON file. And if it's not a real brand, then we want to filter it out. So go do your research and edit this other JSON file. And then here's how you rebuild the project and, send us a pull request. And I talked it up on Twitter and people showed up and they just did all the work for us. This never happens, but it actually did work. I'm still kind of amazed to this day. There was this one day, I think I merged something like 70 pull requests from people. And some of you here at this conference, I recognize people here. You helped out with this, right? You did the pull requests, you got your shirt, and so I thank all of you so much for actually helping match all of our brands with Wikidata tags. And I also did another thing that seems crazy, but I think maintainers, you should really try this out. Everyone who showed up and made a few decent pull requests, like past the point where you could tell that they know what they're doing, I just gave them admin access to the project. So I just said, okay, you're an admin now. And a lot of these volunteers have really stepped up to keep the project going. Tim Smith, for example, he's here someplace. He regularly is still like processing the planet files. And Mateus Konechny and Tater, he's on here too. They've written other scripts to actually check how valid the Wikidata tags are. They catch all kinds of errors. And there's been so many other people who've contributed to this project, like some of the people on this list. It's just been amazing seeing something go from like near dead to a thriving, self-sustaining project that's a good success story. By early December, the name suggestion index project was in good enough shape that we were able to actually include an updated version in ID. So this is ID version 2.12. I highlighted the little section there. But at this point, the name suggestion presets began also setting these brand Wikidata tags as users were using them. And you can see that the usage of the tag then climbs. It's kind of like exponentially going up. So like people are actually, setting these brand tags, which is really great. So one of my goals for this talk is actually to turn everybody here into as passionate as I am about mapping POIs and helping out. So this is the project on GitHub. It's called Name Suggestion Index, which is, I think it's funny. It's not a very good name, but anyway, you can star it, you can follow it and get involved. And I built this little site actually, which lets you browse the name suggestion index. So you don't have to necessarily be like a programmer and working with JSON files. You can actually visit this site and we should really put it up on like a good domain name or something. But for right now, you have to go to GitHub and click there. And it looks like this. This is the viewer. So all of the categories are listed along with how many brands we've detected and how many of these brands actually have a Wikidata link to them. And if you dig into like one of the categories, like here, then you'll see this is all the data we've collected. On the left side, it says the name of the brand, and there's even these overpass turbo links. So you can click on there, and you can see where in the world the name is being used. And we have a count of how many of these things are in OpenStreetMap. And then we have the tags. It says OpenStreetMap tags is the list of the tags that we think are the best tags that mappers should be using. And if it's been linked to the Wikidata tag, we can also show you all this information from Wikidata over here. So it actually has the ID, which is that Q number thing, and the official website, and then all these little social media links are also things that we can fetch. And if it has a social media like a Facebook, a Twitter, or some other thing, we can actually fetch their logo, and we show the logos too. So if you've been using ID since like maybe May or so, in version 2.15, we're now consuming the name suggestion index with the logos also. So you'll see, like, as we click for certain ones which have been like linked to this extra tag, like the logo pops up in the corner, which is kind of neat. I think it gives mappers feedback that, like, oh yeah, like, this thing is really set correctly, and they're doing a good job. So I'm at like about 16 minutes now, and that was all the slides I had. So I could either take questions, or I could also maybe go on and we could do some queries. I know it's kind of like up to, what do you want to do? Do you have questions? Let's open it up for questions first, and then if we run out of that, we could actually look through, like, if people wanted to see how this thing works. So, yes, Bryce.
JAWSM integration. I know there's some, but it's rather difficult to use.
Yeah. So the question is about, does it work in JAWSM? When we distribute this library, we also distribute JAWSM presets. So that's like a big XML file. I don't think it's listed on their presets wiki, but if you wanted to use them, you could just download it from the GitHub and just use them in JAWSM. So there's a few people that do use it that way. Anything else? No? All right, cool. So here's what I'm going to do. This is going to be, this is going to be completely reckless, right? We're going to go onto the real scary internet, and we're going to do some like actual searching and stuff. We're going to go here. So I've actually got this page open up. Let me open it really big. There. Oh, wow. That looks great. Yeah, you can see there's all kinds of stuff in OpenStreetMap. And this is kind of fascinating, like the way that we, I don't know, I look at this project, and I always want to like understand brands a little bit better, like what's going on with them. Like there's all these like, shopping centers, and there's standard shopping center these days has like, a supermarket and a Walmart or Target and a Home Depot or Lowe's. And, like there's this sort of formula for like how retail is working in America right now. And, we could actually, like, someone who likes to tell stories through mapping could figure out like why it is that way, and kind of watch, like, retail sort of also dying at the same time. So I don't know. I'm always fascinated by this stuff, but what I want to do, actually, I guess we could go. I want to show you like exactly the kinds of things we do to do these links. If we go ice cream, right? Ice cream is in here. This one, right? So this is a good example. The first thing here is a brand called, it's actually 33 Penguins, and it's a Russian ice cream brand. And why don't we look that up, because this is kind of wild. I'll share this with everybody. There. This might work, or it might not. I don't know. I don't think it really works in presenter mode. So anyway, that's not going to work, but we can talk about brands some more if we go back to that other thing. What I was going to show you, though, is you can do some research. Like Amarino is another ice cream brand. We can click on, maybe this will work. Nope. No, none of this stuff works because we're presenting probably.
Saved by the bell on that problem?
Yeah. Oh, am I done? Oh, cool. So.
Of course, use as much break time as you wish.
Yeah. So this actually did come up, which is cool. Anyway, the point I was really trying to make is you can go through this site. You can look at all the brands that we have mapped. You can look at the wiki data that we've linked it to, and determine whether or not there's some edits can be made there. You can go to the brand's official website, and you can like match up their social media accounts, like their Facebook, their Twitter, all this other stuff. And then as the logos populate in here, they'll also populate into the ID editor, and then mappers will be happy. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy your break.